Okay, I can confirm that it is live, so whenever
Okay.
you're ready.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll get ready with, or let's start this morning's agenda. First application is A 2020-147. We have the applicant and we should have two in opposition. So I think what we'll do, we'll hear the two in opposition first, then we can let the applicant address what the opposition has to say and then open up for the floor. So
Sorry, through you, the chair, I apologize. It appears that the applicant has not yet logged in.
okay.
If you want to maybe hold off this application, I can get Kristen to assist by sending them a quick email.
Sure.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, I went through that whole dissertation for nothing. Okay. Okay, the next application we'll hear then is A 2020-148. Two people registered both in support of the application. Is the applicant online? I guess it would be Jim talking on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, chair people. I just got transferred over here, so I think I may have missed a little something. Where the applicants for Terry and Joy come, and they are asking for a relief so we can put in a new garage, double car garage to the, we call it the side of their property. If you're looking at the front of their, we call it the front of the building to the left-hand side, though through the planning department, we've realized that this is the rear property yard. So we are asking for relief for a rear yard setback so that we can install or create this new garage in this area. We're also asking for relief for a existing driveway widening. The existing driveway is 12.53 meters, whereas the at the road it's 8 meters. So we're asking to legitimize this existing condition that's been present on the site.
Okay, staff's recommending approval with two conditions. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Motion. Bob?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if in condition 2, the 2.5 months to get condition number 1 is going to be enough. 2.5 months is not a long time. So I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, is 2.5 months enough time for you to meet the number 1 condition?
Thank you. We would ask for a couple of extra months if that is possible. We have started the process already. However, I guess with everything COVID and with everything unknown at this time, a few extra months would certainly be graciously appreciated. Yes.
Well, then, Mr. Chair, through you, I would suggest that condition number 2 say that the completion date be December 1st, 2021.
Okay.
I'd give the applicant some more time.
I gather staff doesn't have a problem with that.
No, Mr. Chair, we do not.
Great, thanks, Julianne.
You're welcome.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I've noticed that there are a whole bunch of letters in support of this application from adjacent neighbors. So I think there's 6 of them. So it's always, as a member of this committee, it's always nice to see when the neighborhood supports the application. I echo the applicant's confusion a little bit as to whether it's a side yard or rear yard. In this particular case, it would be this rear yard, but it does appear to be the side yard. So a bit of a confusion there. So other than that, Mr. Chair, I think this is a good application, and I'm prepared to move that this be approved with the 2 conditions as amended.
Okay, hang on before we carry further with that. Scott, did you have something? You had your hands up or hand up.
It's actually Joy, the applicant. Chairman, I had a similar question to the applicant whether he needed more time. So I fully support Bob's motion. I'm actually prepared to second it. So
okay, hang on, Joy, you have a hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
You can't hear them too good.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so I've started the process with the arborist. Someone's actually coming this week And they told me that it takes them about 48 hours to get a report completed. So I think the timeline that was presently in the report, it's a good timeline. But with you extending the timeline, it's just to say I have until then to do it. I can do it as fast as I want or early as I
Yes.
can, right? Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, second by Scott, all in favor?
Did we lose Mike?
We've
Yeah,
lost
where'd Mike
Mike.
go?
He just reconnected, so he's just settling in one more time. So just give me 1 second to see if I can.
I think my mic is now unmuted.
You
at
are.
least.
No, you are available now, Mike. Go ahead.
Mike, it was motion with the revised date, second or by Bob, second by Scott. You in favor?
I missed which application we're on. I'm sorry. I apologize. Is this the first one for Garen or
Second. No, second.
Mitchner?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, I am in favor of.
Okay. All right, carried. Thank you.
I can also
Thank you.
confirm that the applicant is now here for Gruen Street if you'd like to go back.
What?
Okay.
I don't even understand. We never hear anything.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to application 202147. Once again, there's two in opposition, registered in opposition, and then the applicant obviously in support. What we'll do is we'll hear from the people registered in opposition first. Are they available? Medavi, are you there? We also, just for the record, had a couple written submissions in opposition to. They've been redacted, so I don't know if they're the same people that are going to speak right now or not. But it would be helpful for the committee in the future to be able to know that. So it makes it difficult to deal with redacted submissions at the committee level.
I apologize through the chair. After the agenda are published, we have a time constraint to make sure that all those that are participating in the meeting also get the submissions. So we are just trying to figure out the best way to get those details to you.
Okay, so
Can confirm it is their written submission. Madavi, you are
Okay.
unmuted, so the chair is calling for you now.
thank you, Diane. Medavi?
Hello?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good, okay, we're willing to hear your objection.
Yeah. So good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, our objection is, the deck which was made, it was too high and it was very, very close to our master bedroom, and which is affecting our privacy for our family. And my wife she's really suffering from this privacy because she cannot open the windows. The way the deck is made too high, and there is already one minor variance in 2010 for the same property, 668 Durin Avenue, to make the dwelling, and which we have already facing the problem from our backyard bedroom because of that dwelling to convert into semi-detached this property. Now they are asking another minor variance for the deck, which they made it too high and close to our front bedrooms.
Okay.
And yeah, now none of our bedrooms have your privacy now. Please understand and consider our situation.
What's your address?
My address is 66 Gurin Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
66 Gurin Avenue.
Yep. Okay. Anyone have any questions for yeah, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for the residents of 66 Gurin. The elevated deck, if it had a privacy screen facing your yard or your house, would that improve the situation? Right now, it looks like the privacy screen is only about 3 feet high. If it was 5 or 6, would that improve the privacy situation?
No, not only that. If the privacy in that, then we lose our view. Like we don't see our view, right? Then we cannot see the nature. Then it will affect our view. From our bedrooms, we lose the view. We lose the we need to enjoy the nature also, right? Like if you increase the screen, then we lose the view from our property.
When they are doing parties, it was so disturbance for you.
And one more thing that is too high, and it is close to bedroom, and whenever even they are talking slowly, we are unable to sleep. And it is very close. If you wish, you can send any representative to our property and
To check my master bedrooms.
can understand our problem, please. And it's true, even when they are having the party and all, we are unable to sleep up to midnights.
Because of too high.
And the barbecue also, then when they do the barbecue, that's the smoke directly entering to the windows, like it's very close. Because mine is a split house. My house is a split house, and my master bedroom is right upon their deck. And please understand this property situation. And because of this one was converted into semi-deluxe, and 2 houses, one house, the backyard, already we had a problem because of the bedroom, the backyard. This is the same property, 68. In 2010, the application number B2010041 and BA2010058. That time also they did ask a minor variance for to make another house behind that property. That house, their bedroom window facing to my backyard window, and which we had already problem for the privacy backyard bedroom window, and even our backyard. Now we are having a problem for the front yard also because of this deck, and it is too high. And please consider our situation, our family.
And too wide also too.
My kid, he is also like my kid bedroom also very close to that. Even he also, that when they are having parties and it is because of too high, even he's getting disturbed, my kid.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll hear from the next person is Krishna.
Yes.
They logged in, they registered separately, Denny, so the applicant is the only one.
Oh, they're both together?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
All right.
one more.
Okay, all right, so it's the same household. Okay. All right, then. What we'll do is we'll hear from the applicant and just let him walk us through his application quickly and why he wants us to consider approval of this application.
Okay, that would be me. I'm representing the owner of 68 Gurn. So we did the reconstruction project on the road right in front, and we had to remove the existing deck and to connect a sanitary service to get enough fall in it. And we were asked by the city to replace the deck. There was an existing deck, and the actual property itself is not conforming with the setback from what I was told at the start. So we're requesting the minor variance to for the new deck that was built there. And the way we see it is like that the next door residence, which is 68 Gurn. There is also a shed and stuff in that location that never changed. We just tied up to that shed. And if need be, we can put a higher privacy screen in between them. But there is also the tree that's blocking the way. So like, I don't see the point of saying that, oh, they can't see anything because the tree is right there that basically restricts any view to the street. And the deck and the shed that was always there is still there. And the actual variance for the actual building is not within the spec as well, the setback for that. So we just reinstated the existing deck that was already there. I know the new deck might be a little bit higher, but it was reinstatement of an existing deck that was there originally, and they would have been doing the same thing on that existing deck. So it might be higher. We can put a higher privacy screen in between them. And yeah, that's really it.
Okay, does anyone have any questions, comments? Scott?
I have a question for either the staff or the applicant. I'm assuming staff. I'm going to assume that the original deck that was there was constructed without a permit. And I can guarantee that the new deck was constructed without a permit because it's been applied for. But I just want to know if the existing or the original deck was constructed without a permit.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that information with me at the time. What we're dealing with now is this new deck. So I can't answer it at the moment unless you want to pause it and then I can look into it, but I don't have that information on the old deck.
Okay, thanks. I have a few comments, Mr. Chairman, when the time comes.
Yep. Mike, did you have a question?
Just clarification that this application isn't considering deck height at all. It's not in contravention of any zoning or construction issues. The deck at its present height or proposed height is legal, and it's just the setbacks on the side and rear yard that we're considering in this application. That is correct?
Yeah.
Does staff think that there's an issue when the building permit is applied for that height is going to come into question?
It's already built, I think, Mike.
Okay. And just I guess this is a question for the neighbor. Your property, in looking at the city photographs, doesn't appear to have any side yard windows. Are your sight lines impeded merely from the windows facing onto Garen and not against 68 Garen? Not sure if there's someone there that can answer that.
My apologies. I moved him back to an attendee thinking that you were done with the questions for them. So just give 1 second for them to arrive.
I guess the other question too that we need to consider is he's made application to the building department for a building permit. What happens if the building department turn him down? Are we condoning that process or not? I guess is my question. Should there be a condition in there that he has to meet building permit requirements? Just throwing that out there, but I don't know what you think, Julianne, but.
For you, Mr. Chair, if it makes the committee more comfortable, certainly you can put that into your recommendation.
Yeah.
It's understood that they have to meet the requirements typically, but yeah, if the committee so chooses and feels more comfortable with that.
The only reason I say that is because it's already built, right?
It's probably what triggered the
Yeah.
the variance at the first place, because it was probably caught at that point, so.
Yeah. Maybe it's something to consider. Okay, sorry, Mike, you had a question?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I'm going to chime in
Bob.
on this one.
Yeah.
I guess my question is the photograph that's on page 3, showing the front of the building with the car and the tree. That's as it is now, or is that before the deck was replaced?
I'm assuming that's it as it is now, but is that for the applicant, can you answer that?
The one you have is probably the existing conditions.
Yeah.
picture. I don't think Google updated that street yet.
My comments, Mr. Chair, on whether it does or does not meet the building code. If it doesn't meet the building code, then it's not permitted. It won't be allowed to be used. It'd have to come down and be rebuilt to building code. I ran into that a number of years ago when I built a deck, and it had to be to building code. And the building inspector would come out and tell me where it didn't meet code, which was only 1 or 2 minor areas, and it now meets code. So I can understand and appreciate the neighbors' concerns about view and barbecues, but I think that's kind of outside of the authority of this committee. So as long as this meets building code, I think the setbacks do fit into the category of minor. 4.26 meters versus 4.5, that's a minor setback. 2.81 versus 4.0, again, that's a minor setback variance, in my opinion. I'll let my colleagues comment further, but I'm in support of this application.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm in support of it as well, and I'm just going to provide some rationale. The fact that the semi was built with the reduced rear yard is forced the owner of this property to have their amenity area outside, and the finished floor elevation, the front door, kind of forces you to have an elevated either porch or deck to enjoy, and that's what's happened here. The city's work has forced the situation with the setback from the street, so that's the one variance that I have no problems with. If we were to refuse this variance, the applicant would have to cut their deck back by about 1.2 meters away from the objectors, but you still have the shed in the way. And I offered, the neighbors to, why don't we put a privacy screen up, and they're obviously not in favor of that either. So I'm going to support this variance. I think the situation as it is not, it's unique, but it's not a huge issue. So that's my comments.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to move the application as recommended by staff.
Second, it was Bob. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2020-149. We have the applicant, Mirka. Fairly straightforward application. Is the applicant online? There we go. Okay, does anyone have any questions, comments, or motion? Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I fully support this application. It's obviously to accommodate an accessibility issue. I think the design has been well thought out, and the variance is very, very minor. I'm prepared to move the recommendation.
Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is, let me see, did I stroke the wrong one here? Hang on. It is, here we go, A 2021-050 for DK Street. We have the applicant online. It's a fairly straightforward application. Again, does anyone have any questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll chime in, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is fairly straightforward. The requested variances numerically aren't minor, but I'm sure the impact, which is what is important, the impact will be minor. There aren't any objections from adjacent neighbors, so I think this is fairly straightforward. So I will move that this be approved as per the staff report.
Okay, Scott?
Just had a comment and a request of my my colleague who's made the motion for a friendly amendment. Obviously, again, this is an accessibility issue, and the proposal is for a one-story addition, but the recommendation, if the way it is worded, could allow somebody to come back with a two-story addition, which again, could be problematic from an impact perspective. So I'm asking for just a couple of words to be added to allow a one-story addition to the rear yard setback. If that's a friendly amendment, Bob?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's amended. Then that's a second, I gather, Scott?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, next application's A 2021-51. That's 185 Simeon Street. Scott is the applicant. Seems to be a fairly straightforward application as well again. And does anyone have any questions or comments or a motion? Mike?
Again, a very simple, straightforward application in my mind, moving to continue to improve and regentrify, if that's a correct word, that whole neighborhood. I don't see any problems with this at all, and I would move that the application be approved as submitted.
Okay, second. Bob, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, next application is A 2021-52, 74 Chestnut Street. And we have the applicant online. No one else in objection. Raymond's there. Okay, great. Raymond, staff is recommending approval for everything except for the DVD encroachment. They're recommending refusal for that. So what we'll do is I will turn it over to you to let you present your application to us and your supporting material.
Thank you. You hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Super. I provided a letter to be distributed, and I was just going to walk through that letter.
Okay.
Everybody's got it?
Yep.
So start off with is we took ownership of this property a year ago. This is our home, and we are in the process of improving this property. I'm showing some pictures on page 2. That's what the property looked like when we bought it, and this is a recent picture. We've upgraded the landscaping, walkway. We've replaced all the lower floor windows with nice attractive wood windows, the door. So we're doing a major upgrade, and we want to upgrade the rear of the property. Again, we're a corner lot. The house is on Chestnut, but our driveway is on Mansion Street, and we want to improve the rear of that property, which has got a very, very old, terribly looking deck. There's an extension that was built many years ago. It's the foundations are crumbling, and there's a shed that we want to demolish. We want to build a garage, a small garage with a carport, and we want to build a 2-story extension. Take out the old extension, take out the deck, extension, shed, and put up a good attractive 2-story extension. I assume you have the plans. We have an architectural picture of what we want to do, and it's going to greatly improve the beauty of the property, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I respect the planning department's views on the DVT, but this is a very old neighborhood. You walk around, there's very, very few properties that comply to the DVT right now. The houses, the buildings are all very close to the street, and there's lots of obstructions, and I've provided pictures at the end of this letter of a lot of example properties that including ours that do not comply to the DVT requirements. Okay. So regard to request from relief from the 4.57 meter driveway visibility, the first thing is our property currently doesn't comply to that. The right side, sorry, the left side, I assume you look at this from the street side. The left side, you know, the triangle is obstructed by our neighbor's house and deck already. And putting in a garage wall does not diminish that issue there, whatever. The right side currently is blocked by the the deck that we are going to demolish. That deck actually encroaches into the right of way of the city. So we show the picture there. That would be removed. I'm showing the line of the new addition. It'll be in line with the front of the house. So we basically are improving the condition by 2.1 meters by this construction. Okay. I wanted to draw the attention. This is things that your committee have approved in the past. So I found an example of 44 Barthorpe Street, who had a porch 1.52 meters above grade in the DVT, and a stairway in the DVT, and the committee did approve this variance, whatever. I also found another one on 297 Ottawa Street. They had a existing driveway contained within the DVT, and the committee did approve that variance, whatever. So it's not something that you haven't done before in the past. I think the DVT is the main issues, but we're also looking for relief for there'd be a porch on the extension that's below the 0.9 meters, but would be right abutting the property line. But again, I think it maintains, right now it maintains the consistent uniform building sight lines along the street. It's not sticking out or recessed with anything like that. And again, the same property I talked about beforehand, 44 Barthorpe Street, that stairway I think is like less than a meter from the sidewalk. So again, you did approve that type of variance beforehand. And right across the street from us, there's a condominium building. And it had a 2-story addition put onto that building. And it obviously, the building is right up against the sidewalk. It obviously was granted that variance to allow that construction to happen. So that's our case. I just wanted to point out though that there's 2 separate projects. It's the building of the garage, which relies on the relief from the left side DVT. The extension of the house relies on the variance on the right side of the DVT. Our primary goal is to get going on this garage project. And so I'm primarily just looking for, hoping to get, I want you to approve the whole project, whatever like that, but there are variations possible for the different projects we want to do. So thanks very much for your time.
Great, thanks, Ray. Dave, do you want to address the DVT issues, I guess? Everything else has got a recommendation for approval with the exception of the 2-story addition. So I guess that's what we need to really concentrate on.
Absolutely. I think the first thing I would say is that it's unfortunate that the applicant didn't come in and talk with staff before he submitted the application. We might have been able to work out some of these things. We also look at these at a case-by-case basis. So I'm going to start first with the garage. The applicant had mentioned that the wall itself that is in the DVT isn't an issue. I disagree because now you're inserting something that wasn't there before. I agree that the existing house that's there's nothing we can do about that. But if that wall was not there, you know what, that we could relook at that, and that would be something we potentially can support, because you've got that 0.6 meter offset space already from the property line. You put the wall in of the garage, you lose that space. For the new, and that's something else that as well, these aren't existing conditions. These are something that's being introduced. So this new 2-story addition as well. This to us definitely is not minor in nature. This is a big encroachment into the DVT. And as I noted in my comments, we will not support this. Something that but we are supporting the parking setback, which is not an issue for us, as you've noted. And at some point in time, I just want to note that on Mansion Street, sidewalk will be put in. So if you were standing on the street looking at the house, to the left and to the right of the homes, sidewalk has been installed already along Mansion. So at some point, sidewalk will be put in here. And with this parking setback, there shouldn't be an issue of overhang of vehicles on the sidewalk, which is something that we were conscious of. And that's why we supported this. But for the DVT issues, the way it's proposed today, we can't support them. I would recommend that the applicant come in and speak with staff, and maybe we can work something out.
Ray, do you want to do that? Do you want to defer for a month and see what you can maybe come to a meeting of the minds with staff on this?
I'm frustrated in that I felt there was lots of time when I did put the application in, and I was in a position to work with staff, but I don't know why that didn't particularly happen.
Generally, and it needs to be initiated by the applicant, not by by staff, because staff has a horrendously huge workload, and that's just, my 19 years of doing this, that's the way it's always happened. So I guess at this point right now, they're giving you that opportunity, which I thank Dave for being willing to do that. I think it might be something that would be worthwhile.
Can I add some more information regarding the proposed sidewalk? That's why I've shown a couple pictures at the end here. 77 Chestnut Street. If you put a sidewalk along Mansion Street, they no longer have any places to park their cars. The same with 73 Locust Street. They have parking spots on Mansion Street. If you put a sidewalk along there, they lose those parking spots as well and stuff. So I think it's a good reason why there hasn't been a sidewalk put into this this subdivision as well. So I also up until late Thursday, the planning department told me that he actually had supported the garage. It wasn't actually until late Thursday on the report.
All we can do as a committee is go by the report that was submitted to us, which was, we received that last Thursday. So, and this is exactly what we submitted. Scott, did you have a question?
I just had a question for the applicant, and I want to let the applicant know that I'm certainly leaning towards a deferral. I think there can be changes made here that, as Mr. Seller has mentioned, that would meet your requirements and also satisfy the city. But your uncovered porch that doesn't provide a lot of detail. It says it's less than 0.9, but where would the steps be leading up to that porch? They would obviously be out the front, correct?
It's probably just one step, or maybe two. I didn't think it's very light. It's just from below grade to the the first story of the house. There's about 8 steps, so there's going to be a slight step up into the porch, into the entranceway, and then there'll be a stairway up until the main floor of the house.
Yeah. So I think that might actually involve an encroachment, which you don't want to get involved with the city. I mean, right now I feel for you because the existing deck, which encroaches onto the city's road allowance, is not a good situation. But your 2-story addition actually encroaches further towards the street line than Well, it's encroaching 2 feet closer. I think if you shifted that entire addition back 2 feet, including the one-story entry, I know that makes it smaller, but I think the city would probably support that. And
I
I
would-
think you should take.
I would agree. I would agree to that. I would agree to that.
Yeah, but
I think you should defer and sit down with staff. I know it's
Yeah.
a month out of your time, but I think it would be worthwhile.
yeah,
I've already lost several months in this process, but the thing is, though, if there is no relief from the DVT, there isn't space in that property to build a garage. I'm looking for some relief. So if you don't like what's there, what would the committee approve?
oh, yeah, whose bell keeps on ringing?
Yeah.
I don't think staff are suggesting that there wouldn't be any relief. I think they're suggesting that they would like to sit down and twig it with you to make it more palatable for everyone involved is kind of what I'm hearing, right? So that's why I do believe it would be worth your time probably just to take the extra month and get it worked out. There's definitely seems to be a willingness by staff to do that. So it would be advantageous to probably do that.
It's frustrating that
I understand.
we're going to get going in April, and I do believe I got the application in time that there should have been. Well, the only problem is staff is portraying zero tolerance on the DVT. And I said I've given you an example of a property where you allowed DVT. So what will you allow? What will you allow in the DVT?
Yeah.
For you, Mr. Chair, I think what we're trying to accomplish is a couple of things. First of all, by sitting down with the applicant, perhaps there are solutions through use of materials or orientation of this addition that might be less impactful than what he's showing at the current time. I think staff is cognizant that there will likely be some sort of intrusion possible to the DVT, given the existing location of the house, given the nature of this neighborhood, that it's an older neighborhood. But I think there is a willingness on staff's part to sit down with the applicant. There are always potential solutions to every problem. We can't guarantee that there will be no impact to the DVT, and I think Mr. Seller is recognizing that. But in some of the other examples, first of all, we don't use a precedent case example. This is not how it works. But for the applicant's benefit, I see that he has pointed out some properties. Some of those properties were perhaps just a porch, and then perhaps there was a condition that required the use of materials that allowed visibility, so that you could still see when ingressing or egressing from a property. Perhaps they were also not as much of a structured building or whatever. But again, those are different scenarios. They're not the ones that are before the committee today. And I would probably venture that in those cases as well, staff probably sat down with the applicant and made some suggestions as well. So it's not uncommon for us to do that. Sometimes just getting into the meats of the application sometimes takes a little bit of time. And while I understand the applicant's frustration that that we're still working through this, it is a lot of material to cover in a short period. We have about 30 days to deal with all of these applications. So that said, we are more than willing to sit down with you, but and hopefully there'll be a solution that is a little bit more palatable and less impactful than the current one that is being advanced. So that's all I wanted to say. And like I said, staff is willing to meet with you.
Well, for example, I'd be willing to, if I take the plan of the garage, if I flip it, so instead of putting the carport on the right side, that solves the DVT issue on that side. It increases the DVT on the left side, but I guess that would be 2.5. I can get 2.5 meters inside the DVT by
Scott,
doing it.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the
We're not
applicant.
going to
but,
design this.
We're trying to work out a solution here, which we're not going to be able to do. And Mr.
Oh.
Chairman, I really believe that a solution is there with staff, and I'm going to recommend this application be deferred for a month in order
right.
to at least allow the conversation to take place. If it comes back to us, I want the applicant to know that I'm probably going to not support it. So there you go.
Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Having listened to what staff has said and our colleague, I agree. I think there is something that can be done here. It's unfortunate that it's going to delay it another month, and that's frustrating. But as it sits, the intrusion into the DVT as presented in this report, I cannot support. So I'm going to go along with Mr. Hanson and say that this be deferred for a month so the applicant and staff can work this out.
That's a second. And then I personally, I agree with both my colleagues as well. I couldn't support it the way it is right now. And but I do think that you can probably work something out and come to a resolution. So I'm in favor of that. Mike?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ray. I'm sure you'll get something worked out. Next up. Next application is A 2021-53, 12 Blucher. No one in opposition. Igor is the applicant. I see he's online. Fairly straightforward application. No comments from any of the other agencies. Do I have a motion? Questions? Bob? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick question through you to the applicant who would have the best understanding. This access through the easement, is that a shared easement with the neighbor and they park in the backyard as well?
Correct, Bob. So the triplex to the right, they also share it, and I believe they have 3 to 4 cars that have access. That 18-foot wide driveway leads to the back of lot 14, and essentially it's an access point for them as well. And in the future, it would be an access point to enter there. So.
Okay, Bob.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you very much to the applicant. That clears up the only question I had. Fairly straightforward. I am going to move that this be approved as per the staff report with no conditions.
Second.
I'll second.
Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Igor.
Appreciate it.
Next application is A 2021-54. There is no one registered in opposition, but we did receive a written submission for someone in opposition. They didn't register, I guess, right, Diane?
No, they did not.
Okay, staff's recommending approval. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Scott?
A question for staff. This accessory structure was obviously built without a permit, and the building department is asking that a permit be obtained, and there's no condition. If we feel that this application should be supported, I'd like to recommend a condition that at least a building permit be applied for.
Okay. All right, so now I have one condition. Anyone else? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I echo the concerns from our colleague. It's unfortunate that these things go ahead without people getting building permits. We did get a letter in this morning, an email from a neighbor who's concerned. I think it's it looks pretty good. It's good land use. And so I would be prepared to support this as amended with the one condition that the applicant apply for a building permit.
Okay, Rob, do you have your hand up?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Excuse me. There is a permit. We just modified the permit, and Mike Sealing himself offered this solution to correct the permit before we did any changes to the permit to address these height issues. There is definitely a permit in place, engineered and approved by the city. As built, no, but the modifications, he said, go to the city of committee first, or sorry, committee of adjustments first.
Right. Yeah, and I see the report does say that it just isn't obtained yet. That's all. It didn't say it's not. It hasn't been applied for.
Sorry, I just wanted to correct that because there is an engineered plan for the whole construction.
Right.
I think the two issues are the eaves trough is a little bit higher at the back because of the walk-up. Same with the roof pitch. And I think it's more of a formality. I do the plans myself. I'm a contractor. I never do any projects without a permit. These changes were made known that it would require this type of approval. So I think it's more like you don't put the cart before the horse. Get the approval first, and then change the plans to or correct it if there's a disagreement. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Scott, I'll flip it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, just for the record, I did read the letter of objection. I don't share the issue that this is going to cause privacy concerns. I just wanted that for the record.
Sure.
And am I correct now, staff, that there is a building permit that has been applied for?
Yes, that's my understanding. It just has to be revised. So it's not
Sorry,
final.
who's that directed
It's not
to?
final. Yeah.
Okay, so I will remove that condition, Bob, if that's okay with you. If it's been applied for, that's fine.
Okay, so there's a motion. That's a motion then for approval, is it, Scott?
That certainly is.
As written, second was Bob. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application's A 2020-155. It's 41 Hyman Street. Okay, no one registered in opposition. And we have the applicant, Roman. The staff's recommending approval without conditions. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or motion? Scott?
Just had a question for the applicant and or staff. Looking at the side yards of this particular dwelling, it's 1.26 on the one side and 2.9 on the other. Even if you shifted the building over to 1.2, which is the minimum, the building wouldn't have complied with the zoning requirements. So was the building built a little bit larger than what was applied for? I'm just curious. I guess that's a question for the applicant and or staff.
Yeah.
So I had no input into the plans or anything like that. It's already because it was a severance situation, and I believe everything had to be pre-approved to get the severance granted, and the design of the house, the setbacks, everything was already submitted. So I was just building basically site plan, everything permit ready.
Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is fairly straightforward. The two conditions, I don't think a single post in the DVT is going to impede the visibility at all. And condition B, 2.89 meters versus 3.0 meters is really minor. So I move that this be approved with the two conditions,
Without conditions.
Without conditions, but as per the relief request from the from staff. So my motion is to approve this without conditions.
All right, second. Mike, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2021-56, 29 Brunswick Ave. Okay, we have no one in opposition. And the applicant, Phil, staff's recommending approval with two conditions. And there was no other third-party agency comments that were applicable. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, two questions. In condition number one, it's referring to a site plan that is submitted with this application, and I don't see one. And the second condition is referring to severed lands, and I'm confused on that. This isn't a severance, this is a minor variance. So I guess a question for staff. Is there a site plan on this? If not, we need to delete that that comment. And in the second condition, seeing this isn't a severance, we need to remove the reference to the severed lands. I still support the tree management policy, but just wording change there.
For you, Mr. Chair, this was probably it was probably an error in terms of the report writer, the author. So I would imagine there must have been some sort of a drawing that was submitted as part of the building permit. Did you, I don't have the full package here in front of me, but do you receive the full package with any site drawings? And I'm wondering whether they're referencing that. And yet the tree preservation plan, I think, taking out the reference to severed lands. I would just say for the lands, for the subject lands, as opposed to severed lands.
In the package, the applicant did, and this is where there's maybe some confusion. It's not a site plan application, but
No.
there was a
drawing.
drawing.
Yes.
And it's referenced as a site plan.
Yeah.
So it's probably meant to, I would think, tie that drawing to.
That's
this
my
one.
understanding, is that it's tied to the one that was actually submitted with the application, but unfortunately, I don't
Right.
have all of the documentation with me here right now, but I know that yes, and I know that you guys get a complete package, so.
Right. Bob?
Mr. Chair, okay, there is a drawing, more of a survey than a site plan. But seeing these variances requested are so minor, I'm prepared to, if we remove just the word site out of the first condition,
sure,
and severed from the second condition, I will move that this be approved as amended.
Okay. Second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Okay, next application is A 2021-29. There is two people registered in support, one in opposition. The neighbor letter, once again, has been redacted, but I'm assuming that is the same person that's registered. No, it's not redacted. And yes, it is. Okay, so I clarified that. Sorry about that. Also, if we're to consider this, there's a regional fee that needs to get put into the recommendations. They picked up the Grand River fee, but didn't pick up the regional fee.
We didn't have it yet.
Yeah, I assumed that. So, okay, so that needs to go in. And what we will do then is Scott here?
Yes.
Okay, Scott, we'll hear from you first in regards to your opposition. Then that will give the applicant a chance to address your concerns. And then we can open it up to the members of the committee.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's necessarily opposition, but
okay.
I did have some questions.
Sure.
I had talked to the city regarding this before it was going up, before it was being built, and they explained to me that the backyard of 7.5 meters was actually measured from the property line to a deck, and then there was a 12-foot deck, and then the house. But as we can see on the property plan that was sent to me last weekend, from what was built, this thing has already been built pretty much.
Yeah.
The 7.5 meters is actually to the house, which was kind of misleading for me. Now, this extends quite a ways back into this backyard. The house doesn't fit the houses in the area at all. We're a pocket of nice little 1.5-story brick houses. This is kind of looks like an apartment building, if you will. But yeah, there's a privacy issue in my backyard. There's a main floor glass door that looks down, say if I'm having a barbecue in my backyard, and then there's a second floor window that looks right down in. And again, this extra 12 feet that I'm sort of misled on, I'm just wondering what your comments are on that.
Julianne, do you want to address that?
Through Mr. Chair, the setback is measured typically to the wall of the property, but where there is a deck, we do have to measure the deck. And depending on the height of the deck, a setback is also measured from the deck. So I'm not sure what the resident may have been told by somebody else, because I wasn't privy to that conversation, but there is a setback requirement for a deck as well to be a certain distance from the property line. The request today was for, to create a new lot and then there are a number of conditions that are attached to that. So I'm not sure I can really answer the resident's question other than, whatever conversation he may have had with I don't even know who he might have spoken to, because from this email, it looks like there was a number of people that were copied on the email, so I don't know who actually spoke to the gentleman.
No, I can appreciate that. Scott?
If I can assist, Mr. Chairman, to the applicant, the city's zoning bylaw does allow decks to encroach into required rear yards a certain distance, and they have to be set back a certain distance from the side lot line and the rear lot line. And what I'm seeing here, I would say probably does comply, but you can always phone City Hall. And
oh no, I agree with that. That's not what I'm saying. I was just saying I was kind of misled. I would have assumed, and I actually knew, I would say, that the rear yard went to the house, but I was told that it went to a deck. That's what I was. It just kind of, yeah, it's causing a privacy issue. I heard I've been listening to these other ones. You offered suggestions. I don't know, are there things you do for these privacy issues, or is it just something you have to live with? This monstrosity goes up beside you and you just have to live with it.
Scott?
Just a further comment, the reason I offered suggestions for the other deck was because it did not comply. I can tell you right now that this deck that we're showing here does comply, so there's no variance required for it. And I will add that I have read your entire submission, both about the severance and your issues with the cutting of the cable.
Oh yeah, that is a big one. That when the proposed sewer and water go in, that contractor has to get a locate. In this case, he didn't in the other case, but to avoid what happened last time, we just have to be proactive here.
Yeah,
but Scott, I know that doesn't fall into this meeting, right?
No. Scott's got the floor.
Yeah, if I could continue, it is normal for semis to be constructed first and then they come back and they sever down the party wall. So what we're seeing here is not unusual. Unfortunately, my advice to you as a resident, if there is further damage, you're going to have to seek assistance from a lawyer and sue. And that's the only issue you've got for you. I feel for you, but hopefully when these water and sewer lines are installed, if they haven't already, and I will be asking the applicant that question, that they do it correctly. So.
Okay, so since back to the actual wording in this letter, this is just for my curiosity, I guess. They're asking permission to sever the lot. But the last sentence even says the existing dwelling will be demolished. It makes a person, if you were reading this, you would think, okay, if this is agreed to, then they can go ahead and demolish the dwelling and build an area. But it's been built, right? I'm kind of wondering why I got this letter after everything's been built. Is it a?
I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have that letter.
How can you say you don't have a letter? This the Committee of Adjustment Notice of Hearing. I've got a list. It's like the agenda. Pardon me.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I think he's referring to the courtesy notice, and at the time of application, I wouldn't have known whether or not the previous property was demolished. So it's just for clarity of the neighborhood that if a construction is going to be done, whether or not the existing building will be constructed on or whether a new dwelling will be constructed. So that was the intention. I apologize if it was already constructed.
And that's why we wouldn't have the letter ourselves, Scott. That didn't come.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're
One last question. Could I have one last question just for curiosity? If you do say not pass this, what happens? It's already been built, right? And I see the real estate has already, they're trying to sell both halves already. If you don't pass this, what happens there?
Julianne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if, just to answer the gentleman's question, if you were not to approve the severance down the middle, this would still be a permitted use. It would probably then be a rental and it wouldn't be able to be sold individually. That's not what the applicant intends. The applicant intends to sell each half of the semi-detached unit. But failing that, it would be a rental.
It'd be essentially a duplex or it could become a condominium.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you. I see you muted me. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, that was just really a question, and thank you for answering. I think that's
it.
I think that's all I have. Yeah,
okay,
it's mainly curiosity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Scott, you said you had a question for the applicant?
Yeah, just a quick question for the applicant. Have the sanitary laterals for both halves of the semi been installed?
Through the chair, we are having some technical difficulties moving the applicant over. So the real estate agent is here and the applicant is also in the attendee location. So I've just enabled his ability to speak. I'm not sure who's going to answer the question.
I'm sorry, could I make one more comment? Just to something Julianne said, and then I won't say another word.
Quickly.
Yes, I understand. Julianne mentioned that the owner's intent was not to live there, but when I met him once, and he said his intent was to live there and that his daughter was going to live on the other side.
Yeah.
I guess that the answer is that changed, right?
I guess so. That's kind of irrelevant to what we're
I never said anything about who's going to live there. What I said was if you do not allow the severance to go through, this could be 2 rentals and would be perfectly permitted, correct, today. I think the owner's intention is to sell each half of the semi so that they can be sold individually to a new, but that's what I said. I didn't say about the owner residing there. So just for clarification.
Okay, it sounded like a, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. All right. We have an outstanding question. Raj, are you going to answer that?
Yes, sir. So, sorry, what was the question?
I was just wondering if the sanitary and water laterals have been installed for both sides of the semi?
Yes, from the house to outside, but they're not connected to the main yet. That will be after this application has been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or a motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I understand the concern of the next door neighbor on severing of services. In these days, if you lose your internet connection, you may be living in Timbuktu. So I would suggest to the applicant that they make sure that they get the locations done before they go digging in the ground. Everyone should do that. Having said that, this is fairly straightforward. Staff has already confirmed that if we don't do a severance, the building is still going to exist and it could be used for whatever purpose, rental or owner occupation, owner occupied. So I move that this be approved as amended with the extra now 9 conditions to include the extra fee from the region.
Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to second the motion, and I just wanted to add one other comment. I respect the residents' questions and concerns. Planning is not an easy thing to understand, but this is a very simple application to sever an existing semi. The semi fully complies with all requirements of the city. I would note that condition 3, normally the parkland value is included in the condition. It's in the report as $4,002. I would simply add that we add that value to condition number 3 rather than just leaving it open-ended. I was surprised that my colleague Bob didn't pick that up because he's usually all. But I second the motion subject to the addition of condition 9 and also adding in the 4,002 into condition 3.
Yeah, Scott, you're right. I missed that. Thank you for catching me on that. It should have, that number should have been in there, and I think that's a very minor adjustment. So yeah, I'll accept that as an amendment, and we've got a mover and a seconder, Mr. Chair, do we? Yeah.
Yep. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next application is B 2021-30. It's 509 Mill Street. Okay. No one is in opposition. Staff's recommending approval with conditions, and I believe everything got picked up that needed to be. Does anyone have any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
I just had a comment, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that staff added condition number 3 because obviously there's a fairly wide parking area there that needs to be amended to allow this to take place, but it would appear that the lot line adjustment makes sense. It will create a more usable property for the severed parcel, and there's obviously something in mind for that parcel too. So I fully support the application and prepared to move it.
Bob, did you have something?
No, Scott covered it. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Sever and convey a piece of property, and Scott made a motion, so I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is B 2021-31, B 2021-32. In this, staff's recommending approval with some conditions. We need to also pick up the Regions fee and the GRCA fee as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know through the chair that the region is also in attendance for this application if you have any questions for them.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Britton.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Would you like some overview submissions now or later?
I think what we'll do is we'll just hand it over to my colleagues on the, and if anyone has any questions, then they can do directed questions, and we'll take it from there. Scott.
I just had one quick question on the right of way. It would appear that this parcel is large enough that they're also going to get access off Bingham Center Drive. So is that right of way just to provide another second kind of access to a future future development?
The short answer to your question, Mr. Hen, is yes. The long answer is in preparing design guidelines and the preliminary site plan, staff would like to ensure that although this parcel will be a separate parcel, it can be integrated as part of the broader development within the area. So the access that is proposed to the new parcel over the existing driveway is immediately opposite the existing access to Funworks. So the intention is to have sort of crossover connections, both pedestrian-wise as well as vehicular-wise.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Anyone else? If not, motion?
Sorry, I just wanted
sorry, Matthew?
to make,
Yeah.
yep. No concerns with the subject application. Sorry, Matthew Collier, the development planner at the Region of Waterloo. I provided comments on this file. I just wanted to note one thing. There is some sources in our regional database about site contamination on the site. However, we did not flag it as a matter of concern, given that the proposed severed lands is naturally going to be an industrial use. I did want to note that based on the city's existing zoning in place on the property, there is a site-specific provision that does permit a range of uses on the Binghamton's lands. This includes a campground. As we know, the Binghamton's facility has an existing campground. This site-specific provision is continuing to remain on the proposed severed lands. And so regional staff just wanted to make the applicant aware that obviously in a situation where the proposed plans for this site were ever to fall through, to protect against the interest of a campground or a sensitive use ever being established on those severed lands, that a record of site condition would be triggered through Regulation 15304, and that would be dealt with through that process. So there's no concerns with the consent. Regional staff just wanted to make aware that if the ultimate development proposal for the site fell through and a sensitive use was proposed, that site contamination would be something that would possibly need to be addressed at that time. So I just wanted to make Paul aware of that matter.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem.
Anyone else? Or motion?
I move that the application be approved with the conditions as submitted. And Bob, you pointed out that you need to add 2 feet conditions
Yeah,
to the application.
GRCA and region.
So,
Okay.
with those conditions added.
Okay, second? Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Paul.
Consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, next application is B 2021-33. We have no one in opposition. And Pierre's representing the applicant. Just if we are to consider this, there's region conditions that need to be picked up and included in the recommendations. So that being said, does anyone have any questions or comments? Scott?
I had a question for staff. I'm having a hard time, and I'm assuming, Mr. Chairman, we're dealing with Madison Avenue Mill Street
Yes.
application?
Yes.
Normally, when a planning application comes forward, in this case, you've got a consent to sever, and there are numerous variances that deal with disabled parking, visitor parking, and parking overall. We actually would see a site plan. I really don't know how many parking spaces can be accommodated on the retained lands, and I'm having trouble supporting those variances for all those reductions without seeing some type of a site plan.
Julianne?
So, somebody comment.
For you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that all of the reductions are to acknowledge and recognize existing conditions. With specifics as to the number of parking spaces and what have you, I see the applicant's consultant is here. So perhaps Mr. Chauvin might be able to answer some of those other specific questions of Mr. Hanna, but my understanding is these are all existing conditions that are being recognized.
Indulgence, Mr. Chair, I'll defer to my colleague Jillian, who's been assisting.
Having a hard time hearing?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I'll just defer to my assistant Jillian to answer.
Sure.
Yeah, so we did submit a stamp B site plan to acknowledge the existing parking, which will be 3 parking spaces on the retained lands.
So there's 11 units on the retained lands, and there's 3 parking spaces, no disabled parking and no visitor.
Correct. And that's just to reflect the existing condition of the building.
So question for staff then, normally in a situation like this, and I've seen it in the past, even in my short experience on this committee, you're looking to help with situations where there are no visitor parking and no accessible parking. And in this case, there's no concern. I don't understand.
Dave?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a decision was made to require only a stamp plan because there was no actual physical changes being proposed other than the consent. And that it didn't trigger any other site plan approval. I think had it triggered something else, if there was more intensive development or whatever, we wouldn't have requested a stamp plan B for the applicant. They would have gone through a full stamp plan process. And I don't know, again, the consultants are here to answer your question specifically about the proposal. That was my understanding from the file planner.
Is there a plan available?
Yes.
I guess my question is, why wasn't it included as part of the application?
I'm not sure at the time it wasn't necessary or it wasn't deemed to be necessary, but we did file one later on and that was submitted.
Julianne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, well, there isn't a separate plan shown, but there is a small reduced plan showing attached in the planning report, showing exactly what is being proposed, basically indicating that nothing's changing. It's just showing the existing situation for the committee's reference.
Right.
It shows absolutely no access, no parking spaces. It doesn't provide me with any information.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yeah, sure. Pierre.
We have a stamp plan that I can share on the screen if you want, if that would help you. But as Jillian mentioned, it's been filed, it's being processed, being reviewed by staff, and that is one of the conditions of the consent that we get that approval. But if you want, I can share that with you.
That would be great.
Okay, if I can do that.
We don't do screen sharing as part of the meeting, so you'll just need to give me 1 second to adjust the technology.
Okay.
Personally, myself, I think because the condition is conditioned accordingly anyways, I'm satisfied with the way that it, and I would vote in favor of this, just so that everyone's aware.
Yeah, you should, thank you.
So, assuming, judging by your posture, Mr. Hanna, you're looking at it. So that's the plan that's been submitted, and you'll see, we have identified as many. It's really just an open asphalt area back there with no, it is a pretty random parking, to be honest, but, and it is very tight, but that's what's available today. So, and we've tried to dimension as many spaces as we could. There is also an existing space here along Madison. And there are 2 spaces along Mill Street for the severed dwelling.
Yeah, I have no issue with the severed parcel at all. So
I believe also people park out here as well, but it's not a legal space because I think it overhangs onto the sidewalk.
Okay.
Sorry, Pierre, for the purpose of the record, do you mind just sending me an email of that copy so that I can have it for the file?
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, we can do that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, you in your prologue, you stated there are some region concerns. Is that just the fee, or does that include the noise clauses as well?
Yeah, that was a region asked for some conditions. So if you look on their letter, that was, I didn't reference it here. Hang on. They had two conditions, which is, you're right, Bob, it was noise as well.
The fee and the noise.
Yeah. And just if there's any building permits, just some noise attenuation measures, which is they're standard conditions.
In that case, Mr. Chair, I move that this be approved as per the staff report with the amendment of the two conditions from the region.
All right, second. Mike, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, approved. Thanks, Pierre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, last application is B 2021-34, B 2021-35, A 2021-59, A 2021-60. There's no one registered in opposition. And the region, there's some regional conditions that would need to get incorporated into the recommendation here as well, should this be approved. Okay, does anyone have any questions, comments, motion? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is an interesting one, and it's always I get a great deal of happiness when neighbors send in letters of support. It makes our job a little easier. Now, there is as you mentioned, there's the region clauses. Other than that, I think this is fairly straightforward. So I move that this be approved as amended with the region conditions added.
All right, second.
If I may I, this is Jeremy, the applicant.
Sure.
I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
Before I appreciate the rapid approval. I know we all want to be done. First with the encroachment, with the road widening. I have a small concern with that the road widening will consume a lot of the driveway. Although there will still be 5.7 meters of space for the driveway for parking, would it be possible to have an encroachment agreement in case people do park within the right of way?
Julianne?
For you, Mr. Chair, this is a regional road, and I don't believe that the region enters into encroachment agreements. It's not my understanding. Although if Matthew Colley is still on the call, he maybe can confirm that, but I don't believe that is the practice.
Thank you. I understand.
I've never seen it before in 19.
Fair enough. I understand it's a regional road, so it's a bit different, I guess, than some of the other applications I've seen.
Yeah.
Second question is with the condition 1.1 for having the review of the elevation drawings. I did provide a couple renderings with my application showing how it's compatible with the neighborhood, giving staff the opportunity to review and also show the renderings to lots of neighbors. My goal is shared to ensure it's compatible. I'm just looking to reduce delay and extra duplicate work. If we could take a look and maybe clear that today, that would be fantastic.
Julianne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would respectfully request that this condition remain. Staff would like to ensure compatibility. This is an established neighborhood, and we certainly, and I believe it's even in the Rianne's area, so we certainly want to make sure that this is compatible development with the community. And it's something that requires a staff approval. And yeah, that's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pretty standard condition. Scott?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wasn't actually going to second the application until I had a couple of questions answered.
Sure, sorry, yeah.
I may actually second it once I get the questions answered. But
okay.
My actual question was related to the regional widening, and if the regional rep is here, I'd like to understand the extent of the widening being requested, because if it's too great, I concur with the applicant. He's creating a duplex on that side, and he needs to provide 2 parking spaces, and one of them can't encroach onto the widening.
Through the chair, I don't mean to interrupt, but Matthew Colley has left the meeting.
Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Julianne?
Through you, Mr. Chair, any widening that is taken by the region would have been established in their regional official plan, identifying the width and depth of the widenings along their roads. Yeah. Given that this also has an LRT corridor, the widening may be for perhaps road or boulevard or sidewalk, a number of things that the right, perhaps eventually a trail. So it is something that has been identified in their regional official plan, and we as a municipality have delegated approval authority on behalf of the region. So we are, we are intended to support the region when they are requesting these widenings along their corridor route.
Thanks,
Mr. Chairman. I get that. And I guess my question then back to the applicant. I remember this application the last time. Were you going to be converting the garage off Ottawa Street to living space?
No, the garage would remain parking. With the 4-meter road widening, there would also remain 5.7 meters, which is still greater than 5.5 meters required for parking.
Okay, so
there is enough space still for the 2 parking spaces.
Okay, so you will have 2 parking spaces. I just didn't want you to get to a situation where you're applying for your permit and you can't get your second unit because you don't have your 2 spaces. So
thank you.
Okay, and I just wanted to also commend the applicant. I read your entire dissertation on how you felt all of the variances made sense, and I fully support you. I think what you're doing is a very unique design, a very unique development, and right next to the LRT corridor, and it makes perfect sense. So now I'm willing to second the motion by my colleague.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn. Scott.